Greetings and welcome to my presentation addressing the issue of digital reading on smartphones, implications on L2 students' language learning process. My name is Oh Chen May and I'm from College Matrikulasi Negeri Sembilan. Before I begin, let me ask you this question. Where do we mostly do our reading nowadays? On print or digital screens? Well, since the introduction of the internet and smartphones, there has been a shift in our reading patterns from print to digital text. This change especially influences L2 students' language learning process because the texts encountered in the digital environment are mostly in the English language. This provides an authentic platform for them, a real reading environment that supports and engages students in meaningful reading and language learning process. However, a general review of past studies showed limited research on language learning that takes place naturally in real-life settings. Most were mainly conducted in controlled class environments involving academic tasks. Research shows that language learning would be more meaningful or memorable if it took place in authentic contexts rather than as an artificial task. Although some people may not consider their use of smartphones as a form of reading practice, being online itself does involve digital reading skills. Because, generally, most forms of information that appear on smartphones, except audio and videos, do require some form of reading to navigate through the online digital environment. Hence, the objective of this study is to identify the aspects of digital reading by L2 students on smartphones that affect their language skills, and to investigate the process by which those aspects influence their language learning development. This study is significant because it would reveal how L2 students learn the English language as they conduct digital reading on their smartphones. It would also help educators and researchers alike to keep up with current research pertaining to digital reading, which is presently more established on native English language students. This study could also help educators and researchers explore and determine the next steps needed in formulating practical strategies that can assist students with the best skills in handling digital texts. This is a qualitative case study aimed at exploring aspects of students' digital reading practices that affected their language skills while they used their smartphones to read. The participants were based on random sampling, where 12 students volunteered to be part of the study. These were 18-year-old Asian L2 speakers with low and high proficiency levels from all over West Malaysia. Data was collected through students' smartphone screen recordings, open-ended interview questions, and observation logs to record insights that were observed from the screen recordings. The data was collected in two phases. In the first phase, students were given a briefing and instructions to record their reading activities on smartphones. These videos were then replayed to the students in the second phase for clarification through in-depth interviews and over text messages. The data were then thematically analyzed and triangulated and cross-checked with the students to be verified. Findings revealed that students generally preferred to read texts in the English language than in their L1 because there were more varieties of text available. The kind of reading usually followed skimming and scanning techniques because most of the time, their purpose of reading digital text on smartphones was to obtain an overview of the main ideas rather than to read extensively. The reading process showed that students mainly focused on keywords and content while reading digitally, and they confirmed that this non-linear reading technique was most suitable for comprehending the text because this helped them to identify main points quickly and saves their reading time, especially when content retrieval was their focus. Nevertheless, some scholars argue that this reading style does little to improve reading skills because there is less focus on in-depth reading and only on picking up words in isolation, not in context. However, students indicated that they practiced skills such as identifying for main ideas and distinguishing between relevant and irrelevant information. This was performed when students evaluated and decided if certain content was helpful and filtered it according to the interest and usefulness while reading. Students also occasionally conducted further research to clarify information or check the credibility of certain websites. This led to further reading enrichment and exposure to other authentic texts. Students asserted that new vocabularies were also learned in the process. They referred instantly to online dictionaries and Google Translate when they encountered unfamiliar words. Sometimes they look up Google search for illustrations and note down new words learned in a notebook to help with memory and vocabulary building efforts. And since most of the published online texts, especially those from reputable websites, had gone through proofreading and editing, students were also able to observe how new words and grammatically correct sentences were used accurately in authentic, real-world contexts. Hence, by reading digital texts on smartphones, students noted that this helped their language skills improve by expanding their vocabulary range, familiarizing themselves with appropriate sentence structures and grammar use, and were able to practice the language in daily contexts to interact online. At the same time, the consistent exposure to the English language through their smartphones every day boosted their confidence in using the language because it made the English language appear less foreign. Additionally, although the multimodal aspects of digital text presented more complex combinations of audiovisual elements which are not present in printed texts, findings in this study demonstrated that students were able to navigate multimodal texts by effectively using skimming and scanning methods. This was as opposed to what was highlighted earlier, which claimed that the L2 students were unsuccessful in handling text in the digital environment. As a final note, although reading digitally on smartphones may propose challenges because it involves two languages, making it a cross-linguistic process, the students use their L1 knowledge of the skimming and scanning reading method to support their L2 reading practice. Additionally, they utilize online digital tools such as dictionaries, Google Translate, and image search to help them with comprehension and understanding. These were part of the language learning process experienced by the L2 students as they approached and handled digital texts on their smartphones. It is recommended that further research in terms of developing these technologies can be conducted in order to make digital reading as comfortable as possible and to formulate practical strategies that can assist students even further in their handling of digital texts. In conclusion, with the immense source of reading materials, consistent reading of digital texts on smartphones could indeed improve language skills to a certain extent. Thank you.